question. So I think I'm gonna officially start now. So today is International Women's Day, and I warmly welcome you to our discussion on the role of female family members in the family firm. My name is Sonja Kissling. I'm a family business advisor. I work with families on their ownership strategies and on their structures and decision making. And I'm gonna moderate this session a little on behalf of Trusted Family. So I have a few organizational issues to tell you. So this webinar is recorded. You will all receive a link after the session where you can access the recording. What else? If you have any questions, just write it on the Q&A section below and try to just throw out immediately the questions. We try to integrate it. We will all have a look at the Q&A box. So we try to integrate your questions in the discussion. I want to thank Trusted Family for having us. I know Trusted Family since a long time, and they have been incredibly successful in the last years because they serve the need, as you probably all know, Trusted Family provides governance platforms, meaning online platforms where family members can share documents, can collaborate, can organize dates, etc. So they really serve, or they met the need of family members to organize themselves. So I thank you very much, Trusted Family, for having us today. Any other organizational issues? No, so I warmly welcome now again Melinda Rogers-Hickson and Sherin Debas. Sherin is based in Lebanon and Melinda is based in Canada. I myself are from Switzerland, so we probably have some cultural issues where we can already talk about. Sherin and Melinda, they both have a family business background, and they today advise also in different roles, family firms and other firms today. I don't want to further introduce you, so I kindly ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who are you, what is your background, and what do you do?
So maybe I will start. So thank you, Sonja, for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be doing this with you and with Melinda. As you said, I'm based in Beirut, Lebanon. I'm part myself of a family business. We're the third generation, so cousin consortium. My intention today is to be truthful. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my story and not just, the titles, so that you get a little bit more information. So because I grew up in a family business and in a country where, we had wars and instability and tough periods and challenges. I saw from my experience, the joys, but also the pain of being part of a family business, and I wondered, what can we do to change things? How can we do to, improve things within family businesses? And this is where, when I started to do my coaching program certification, I realized there was something very important here that I could do to help and support other family businesses. So today, it's been a few years now, I'm a family business advisor and an executive coach. And my passion is to really work on the family dynamics, alignment, conflict resolution, values of family. And I'm very sensitive to the topic of women empowerment. This is my second, baby. So I have family business passion, and I also have the women empowerment passion, especially that I live in this region of the world where sometimes the women don't have the same legal rights than men. This is on top of all the, biases that you can have in the patriarchal society. So I developed also women in leadership programs that were delivered in some business schools here in Lebanon. And I'm also part of the Family Business Network board for the Levant chapters. So I'm also part, active in the community here in Lebanon with this regard. So that's me in a nutshell. So few words, that's me today.
Thank you. So as introduced, I'm Melinda Rogers-Hickson, and I'm also part of a family business background. I'm also a family business advisor, and being part of a family business really, I think, has helped, to that end. I've grown up in Canada, and my father founded Canada's largest cable and wireless provider. I'm one of 4 siblings. And I think we have a really good understanding of what being in a family business is all about, along with, you know, not just the opportunities, but the challenges that it can bring. I've lived through our own family business transition with my father passing and moving to sibling partnership. And had the opportunity to have a series of progressive roles within our family company and outside. I founded in 2011 Rogers Venture Partners and went on to chair the board of a company called Texture by Next Issue Media, which was acquired by Apple in 2018. Over the last 10 years, I've advised other business families on succession, governance, transition issues, as well as corporate governance and family office design. And I've loved working with families on development of the next generation. In addition to my advisory role at Rogers, my work at a company called GTA, I serve as a director of Rogers Bank, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, Bombardier, Huron University, and I'm the chair of the Jays Care Foundation, which is a sports philanthropy arm. And I live in Toronto with my husband and 4 kids who range from 5 to 14. So as many of you on the webinar today, you know, have experienced the challenges of the last 2 years of trying to work and ensure that the children still thrive well in this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melinda. So you both have today a lot of roles. And today, you know, we want to focus on about the female side of you, or the development of you, and how you also became or got these different roles in the family firm. So I would like to better understand, you know, when you go back to you as a very young woman, what were the expectations you feel, you know, as a woman, as a part of the family, as family member? What are the expected? When we look today, you have a fulfilled life, you know, with so many different roles. But what did you feel when you were about 20? What were the expectations you felt?
I can jump in. I think at 20, I actually wasn't really as much aware that there could be any challenges put in front of me based on gender. My dad was always of the opinion that you work hard and, you know, you keep going no matter what stumbling blocks are put in front of you. Mm-hmm. I think it wasn't until my first job out after I got my master's of business that I realized that women have to navigate within a business environment differently than our male counterparts, and similarly within a family business, unfortunately. Mm-hmm.
So you perceived a certain difference to your male colleagues after having done your education, so to say, when you first were in a professional role. How about you, Shireen? What was the expectations?
Thank you for this question, because I think it's the first time someone asked me the question directly, so I like it. So for me, I have a brother and a sister, so we're 3. And, you know, I always grew up in a very open-minded family where, you know, we all studied abroad, had higher education, and were really pushed to give our best. So I never felt as a teenager or as a student any difference. However, when I started working, I know that what I wanted was to define myself as an individual and not as a family member. So it was very important for me to prove myself outside of my family, not necessarily the family business, but of the family. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, when you're part of a family business, you have the name that is, you know, the name of the company. I mean, in our community locally, this name comes with a certain weight, a reputation. Mm-hmm. But when I'm abroad, when I was in Europe, growing up and studying, I was myself. I was just Shireen, so which was amazing, you know, to prove myself. So I needed to do this outside of the family. Mm-hmm. However, I realized the gender bias later on when I started working. I used to work for a big multinational when I came out of university, and then I had no, you know, experience of gender bias at that time. Mm-hmm. But then when I left this multinational and I went to see my dad, my dad said, "Come and work with us." Okay. And it was about this. I'm the youngest of the family, and my brother is the eldest. And it was about the same time where my brother joined also the family business.
Okay.
And I realized that he had a great position, that he was traveling, doing business development, and that I was sitting in an office alone on my own, trying to create something and doing some marketing plans that no one cared about. So I was like, okay, there's something weird here. Like I started to feel actually a difference in treatment, which is, unconscious from the part of the family, from the side of the family. So obviously, as a family member, I had a seat, I had a position because I'm a family member. However, I didn't have, a higher responsibility or expectations, where, you do whatever you can do, whatever you want, but there was no pressure. Whereas the boys and the cousins had, bigger, higher responsibilities of P&L and like really responsibilities, I would say. So I lasted only 4 months in the business. So after 4 months, I went to my dad and I told him, Dad, I love you, but I'm leaving, but I love you. And so he accepted, obviously, and we stayed very close, and we have a great relationship today, which is on different terms. But that was my first experience in my 20s about, realizing that, oh, there's a difference in this word. And the business we're in the energy and lighting sector, so which is a sector that is more male dominated also. I think this also didn't help. It's not, it's linked to the construction market, so it's very male dominated, especially in our region. So also I didn't fit with the nature of the business in terms of, it wasn't my passion really to go into construction. But still, I didn't have a responsibility even internally that I could, really match and fit. There were no expectation of going up the ladder, like to be pushed for this. I wasn't pushed as hard.
And why do you think was it like this?
Because as a woman, I think unconsciously in our culture, it's very patriarchal. And I'm saying this because I know that there's a lot of love and support from my family. But at the same time, I know that the expectation is for me to have, children, to get married, to live my life, to be happy through, motherhood, and to also work if I want to. So it's more an option than something I need to really develop and gain financial independence. And, that was not the role that was, I didn't grow up in this mentality. Okay. However, later on in my life, after, I had children, etc., I got married, I realized how important it is to be financially independent as a woman. But this came later on.
Okay.
When, I had to face personal challenges.
I think you touched on two issues. So one is when around just pure being female, and the second you spoke about working outside the family business before you came in. And well, I think for all family members, that's really important because you're gaining experience prior to coming in, and as a result, respect before you come in. But it's also, I think there's one part is the female and the other part is literally the importance of trying to spend time outside, pushing yourself to a certain level before you enter the family company, so that, and particularly gaining the opportunity to have several promotions, et cetera. So when you come in, you're not just coming in as a daughter or a family member.
Yes. And having had this higher education abroad and this professional experience in the multinational is what is supporting me today, 20 years later, when we're in a very big economical crisis in Lebanon, to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and not to be able to be able to provide for myself. So that's the gift I got from my family. It's still this education and this drive to, to gain my own experience. And this, if there's something I want to give an advice to younger or young student of next generation of family members, like really invest in yourself very young. Invest in your education, in your professional life, really outside on your own before joining the business. That would be, because this is yours. You can take it later on in life, it's yours.
Yeah, I agree.
I am curious about one question, because, I see so many family members or in family firms, often they have families. So they have descendants, they have children. So I was always thinking, do family members feel a certain pressure to like provide for the next generation, or to make sure that the family business can go to the next generation? You know, did you feel a certain pressure to have children? You know, that the family has descendants or has people who can the family firm be passed on?
I never felt that pressure myself.
Okay.
But I mean, I have 4 kids. I told my husband, let's have 7 or 10, just because I love children. And actually, a couple of months ago, we were talking about, my son was struggling with learning French. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to explain to him how important it is to, if you can, to learn a couple of different languages, particularly in Canada, because of our family business. And he was like, well, Mama, I don't want to go into the family business. And I said to him, Zachary, that's okay, because you can be a steward and an owner manager, not an owner operator. Mm-hmm. And he's an entrepreneur and wants to go to Silicon Valley and start his own company. Mm-hmm. Like, that's absolutely great. And that's following your grandfather's legacy. Mm-hmm. But no pressure to actually actively work in it. But you do need to be able to understand enough about it to ensure that it remains a vibrant and dynamic business, not just for the immediate family members, but we consider, frankly, all the employees an extension of our family. Mm-hmm. And so the responsibility isn't just to those that are related by blood, but everybody who works there. Mm-hmm. It's a slightly different way of looking at it.
Okay. Okay. So to keep the family firm in the family hands in order to provide also the jobs for the people that are depending from you. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think I can speak about my experience, my personal experience, and then what I observe, with my clients and in my community. But my experience is that I think the generation of my dad and uncles, mm-hmm. they weren't aware about, legacy or succession planning and family business, theories that we have now, all the discussions we had. I mean, 30 years ago, they were just, working to provide for their families and for their employees. And actually, I always felt that the employees were more privileged than family members because, they could negotiate their salaries and well, as a family member, usually you don't negotiate your salary, you just say thank you for whatever is given to you, because they cannot tell them, I'm going to go to the competition. I mean, you're there, you're part of the family. So I think the pressure to have children is because it's part of our culture. Family is very important. It wasn't really in the mindset of driving the legacy of the business. It's more mm-hmm. about fulfillment and family life that is very important, and they want all their children to be fulfilled through the family, and that's the meaning of life for them. They work for their families. I mean, this is very cultural, and I think we share this in many regions and in many cultures. Okay. I mean, it's the value of family that is important.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious, about the development of your roles within the family firm. You say, so you had, Sherin, you said you moved out, but you came back, and or what made you assume the different roles you have today?
In my experience, I had a very brief experience in the operations that I mentioned, and then I left to continue to go back to the multinational. And then when I had kids, I stopped working for a few years, and I decided to become an executive coach and a family business advisor. Mm-hmm. And it's around that time that I reconnected with my dad, and mm-hmm. I worked very closely, one-on-one discussions, more in an informed father-daughter relationship. And that was very important to me because I grew up without my family. I grew up in Europe, and I was in a boarding school, etc. So this relationship was very important to me. Mm-hmm. And then the outcome of this is that when finally there was a board seat available at the board of the company, I joined the board as a shareholder, as a director, board of directors. So this is how I entered, in the governance structure, a more formal role in the family business system. Mm-hmm. So I stayed a few years. I was a corporate secretary for the board at first, because mm-hmm. as the only woman sitting on the board, we were 9 board directors, and I was the only woman, and that was very intimidating for me. Yes. I was still not as, I had less experience than I have today, So having the role of corporate secretary was a gift, because I found, okay, I have a role here, I can participate, I can add value. But however, after a few years, I realized that I wasn't doing properly my role of, a director.
Yeah.
So I dropped, I resigned from my corporate secretary role to really focus on being really a director. And this is where I have a big message about, women finding their voice at the table, on the board, building your self-confidence, connecting with other people, getting mentored, not being afraid of, voicing up, your concerns or the challenges. And it's not easy when the chairman is your dad, for example, or your uncle or a family member, because you don't want to raise, to wash your dirty laundry in front of everybody in the boardroom. So it's very hard to have a contradicting voice than your family members, and at the same time to add value to the business and to say, sometimes to voice what is not easy or easily said.
Yes, so yeah, I can imagine it's a difficult way up in the board of directors. So you both serve now in the board of your family firms. Melinda, what was your way in the board, or how?
So I started actually after I graduated from business school. I actually went out to Silicon Valley. I just wanted to, my father was always looking 20 years in the future, and he and I are very close that way. And I spent a few years out there, and I didn't come back, or I came back when my father's health started declining, probably earlier than I needed to, but my sisters called and were concerned. And I did a variety of different roles within the business, focused on strategy, partnerships, incubation, venture, etc. And then had a real slant also with respect to culture and a focus on HR. Really enjoyed the roles that I was playing there. When my father passed, I'm trying to think how many years it was, but several years later, the decision was made. My brother and I both decided to step back from our operating roles and to take on more of the corporate governance role as a director and owner rather than an operator. And I think sometimes it's difficult when you have a CEO who's a non-family member, and you have a family member that reports to that CEO, but that CEO then reports to you on the board.
Okay.
And I think, for that reason, it was decided, okay, let's try to step back. I have to tell you, the journey of working within the family company was a bit different and similar to what we just heard. Well, there might not necessarily have been pressure. There really was. So when I had kids, there wasn't, technically Canada has maternity leave. I feel that as a woman, if you really take that time, you're actually taking a step backwards because it's a full year. So with my second son, I went into labor on Friday and I was back in the office on Monday, which I'm not sure I'd recommend to women necessarily as the smartest idea. But anyway, so, stepping back with my brother, we were already on the board, but stepping back, and then we stepped up to chair, and then I'm deputy chair of the company. And I think that was the right move for us in terms of trying to steward where it's going to go going forward. Again, there are challenges, and speaking of investing in yourself as a woman, I believe there's nothing more critically important. You are the boss of you, and if you want to be the best version of yourself, you need to put yourself first. So whether it's investing in, you're going to join your family board, investing in corporate governance programs, or negotiation programs, whatever it is you need to bolster yourself, I found that to be really important for myself, frankly.
So what were the most difficult situation for you as a woman in your career, in your family firm?
Can you say that one more time?
As a woman, what was the difficult situation, the most difficult situation in your career as a woman when you look back?
might let Shireen answer that first.
I'm thinking, because I have many things that come to my mind that I would like to share. Some maybe are personal, but the first thing is, because we were discussing about the roles of women. And I know that in big families, you have a philanthropy leg. And very often, a lot of, they are headed by women, by family members who are women. And I talk to a lot of women who are in this position.
Yeah.
And even though they do amazing work and, they really help the community and they add value. However, I feel also, and they told me that sometimes it's, like a parking role. Like, okay, we don't know where to put you into the business, the serious thing where you bring, money and profit to the business, and this is the role of men. Okay, you're nice, let's give you the philanthropy leg so that we give you a place, like a parking role, which is, if it's taken, I mean, it's huge, it's very important, and it bonds the family, and it has lots of value, and it's critical. But at the same time, it's like we put you there because you're the woman and you can do it well.
And you're supposed to do this philanthropic work.
Yes, because you're a woman and you're a caregiver, you're nurturing, etc. So I think that's a challenge that women face also, like to have those roles that are on the side, or nurturing, or motherhood, and not, not to be part of the decision-making table. So that's, I think, a challenge. If I think about myself personally, I don't know if it's as a family member or as a woman, because, we're also family members, not defined only by our gender. It was really trying to push the corporate governance, culture into the mind of, the older generation and other family members. True, we had a board, and we have a board, and we follow, the practices. But in reality, there are lots of decisions that are taken by sometimes one person, I mean, sometimes it's just a show and information update versus, really making strategic decision for the business and really involving everybody and really listening to the different voices and to really do the proper control and strategic role of the board. Sometimes it's just, okay, well, let's do a board meeting just to sign the papers, update everybody, and then I'm the responsible, I have the power, I can do whatever I want, and I move faster alone. So really driving this culture of corporate governance, the governance culture, was one of the main challenge I think I faced, and this is what I do every day in our informal and formal discussions.
Yes, yeah, important work. Yes, I can see that. Melinda, how about you? What was challenging?
Well, I think there's been a couple of things that are challenging, some more recently, some in the past, but I think continues for all women. And I think one of the things people assume is because you're a family member, you don't necessarily need to deal with issues, whether it's harassment or other types of issues. And I spoke actually to our media companies several years ago around sexual harassment, and was quite honest with them about my own experiences as a board member when I was for Rogers, at a board offsite of a company I was on, or even being told by one of our executives, former executives here at the company, when I was pregnant, to focus on matters below my waist and butt out of the conversation. And I think as a woman and as a family member, that's particularly hard, specifically when the males in the family don't speak up and say that's not okay, and that's not a particularly fun journey for anybody. I think also the thing that I found very difficult as well, particularly in the last couple of years, is really trying to focus on governance within the family, outside of the public company board. And I think that's a journey for people, and for specifically for people who have, as was just spoken about, authority or power, to try to seed and work with a collective family group, as opposed to doing things that they want to do their own way without buy-in. And that's a journey for families and family businesses. Sometimes you're going to hit a lot of potholes. I would argue our family has hit some significant potholes in the last 12 months that I'm confident that we will get ourselves out of. But it will require a lot of hard work on all of our part, I think.
Mm-hmm. So managing the family and you not get the support you needed from other family members or from the family firm. So this is to fight alone or somehow alone. To fight to stand on your own feet. How do you think has the role of female family members in general changed over, I don't know, evolved in the last century? Or what do you see? You see a lot of family firms, you see a lot of colleagues also in your consulting career. How do you think has that changed?
For me, I'm going to jump in, and I think it's amazing to see how many more women are involved in their family business. So this, I'm very happy. I mean, there are much more than before. I think we need to do even more, but already things have changed. And what I notice also, and it's not only in Lebanon, it's in the region, a lot of women now are inheriting, shares from their business. Because there's a transition, from all the businesses that started in the 70s, where there was an economical boom, to today, and they hold in their hands lots of economical power. So whether they work in the business or not, they have a voice. Mm-hmm. And so I think they are more involved in the business, in the operation, but also as shareholders. And I think the challenge here is to really open the minds of all those women who are shareholders or owners, not to be passive or silent shareholders. Mm-hmm. And because from wherever your position is, even if you're only a shareholder, you have an influence. You can nominate the board of directors. You have a say in the business, not only, not to give this power out to someone else. I mean, you have a power. And what's promising is that in the future, more and more women will have this economical power, then when there will be a critical mass, if you want, there's going to be a much bigger change in the community, not only in the family business, but in the communities as well, because that's the beauty of being part of a family. Mm-hmm. You employ people in the community, you give back always to the community, you're really linked, and you have strong bonds with the community. I mean, it's because it's so personal that you are part of the community. And that's what I love about family businesses. It's those values that are very strong and this belonging. Mm-hmm. So I think, yes, more and more women are active. I see a lot of families where they have, the siblings are all girls. And that's beautiful. That's amazing because you see the difference in energy. Mm-hmm. When you talk to the sisters, you see, wow, this is paradise. When you talk to a family where it's more mixed, the energy is very different. Mm-hmm. So that's my observations, from what I see in the region now.
Mm-hmm. We also see one of the additional things we see is, recognizing that a lot of women now are owners and shareholders of their family businesses, and they are taking different roles outside of the typical philanthropic roles. With respect to our clients, we see a lot of women from very young all through the age range really wanting to step up their education, have coaching, mentorship, in order to be as strong as they can be. And when I look at the client base and you look at the male clients versus female clients, even within that same family, it's the females who are striving higher than the males, which is an interesting dynamic. I think that has definitely changed in the last 20 years.
In your countries, I see the same. I mean, when I look back maybe 100 years in Switzerland, what changed 100 years ago, maybe so that, as you said, females became shareholders. So before there was primogeniture and only probably the firstborn male descendant inherited everything. So I think that changed in the last century, that females now have a part of the ownership stake. And as you said, Shereen, it changed, or today I see them to become more and more active Because I think it's a development. They have to get used to the ownership, to the duties of what is it to be an owner of a company. They get more and more active. We see that also, I think in Switzerland, you see that also in the board of directors, you see more women coming in. Still in Switzerland, I would say it's quite rare that you have on the executive level female family members coming in. I don't know about your countries, if you observe the same.
I don't think that females are barred from the executive level family owners per se. I think it can be a lot harder to climb and be considered. Yeah. And I do still think, at least in Canada, while there's a lot of lip service to gender equity, the reality is we are not there yet.
Yeah, for me, I don't have the data for our region because it's very hard to find the data. But I think there are a lot of women who are executives. But in terms of percentage, I don't know what's the proportion compared to me. But yeah, there are women who are very successful and who get there. But I wish there were more women. Because, you know, before starting this webinar, I Googled, you know, the International Women's Day. And because we say, why is it one day per year where we celebrate women and not every day of the year? I mean, what does it mean? Like the 364 other days, it's Men's Day. But actually, I noted something like it was about dreaming of a world, you know, without bias, stereotypes, discrimination, and it's about, you know, gender equality. And creating a world that is more diverse and inclusive. And I think this is where we need to strive for. It's not about women against men or having, you know, fighting for women's rights just to fight for women's rights. It's about really finding this balance. And I remember once I was in a conference and an old man reacted in the audience about, you know, the speech of, you know, promoting more women and the question of quotas, you know, and the workforce. Okay. And the person said, yeah, but if all the women have these jobs, what will happen to the men? Because in his mind, this old man, in his culture, men are the breadwinner for their families. So if you remove those jobs from these men, they will not be able to provide for their families. So you're hurting them. So it was coming at the expense, at the cost. And so my reaction to this was, no, we need to think about it as at the society level. I mean, the more you empower women, the more also the women will educate better their children and will also be breadwinners. And we're together in this. It's not men versus women. It's together. Let's see how we can also share the responsibility of the, you know, the children, the home, the house chores, the responsibility of the house, also to balance this, because today the mental weight is on the women, even if they have support or help, if they are privileged enough to have access to this help and support, they still carry, you know, the mental weight of managing everything at work and at home. So we need to balance all this together. We're in this together.
It's interesting you say that because, you know, at least within North America, everybody, the ability to work remotely, there is many benefits to it. Yeah. The one, you know, and the one difficulty I think for women has been they're working remotely at home. Their husbands are working remotely at home. Their children are working remotely at home. And so they still have to do their full-time job. Plus they have to stop and do lunch. Plus they have to help the child with the question that the child is stuck on, plus. And so, you know, while the tools of Zoom and Teams, et cetera, have provided flexibility in terms of when and where you can work without, you know, some general policies from the company that you're working for. And frankly, a supportive partner who will step up and take 50% of the domestic role, it becomes even more difficult.
So what you talk about is the role of technology. I think because we are invited also because of an internet platform, online platform, I would like to ask you, what is the role of technology in the advancement of women? As you said, Melinda, as I understand you correctly, I mean, it had both in the last 2 years. It was more work, but at the same time, the work was more controllable in that sense. You know, I had Zoom meetings with my families or the families I work with, and I don't know, at 6 o'clock the Zoom meeting ended, and I could go home without being getting in the car, having the time lost on the road to get home. So it has been much more efficient, you know, and I could plan it much better. So for my work, it was also, yeah, it had advantages that that we could not meet physically. So what do you think about, or what is your experience with technology, and how does technology help female family members today?
So as I said, I think because of the pandemic, businesses have consciously adopted new technologies that previously were nice to have. And previously they were really wary of remote working and flexible work environments. And both of those things are very, very good. And it's been in a productive and efficient way of working, and opens up opportunities for women who might not have been able to be part of the workforce before. It's a great tool to attract and retain employees, particularly right now during what's happening here is like what we call the Great Resignation. And I believe most employers plan to adopt a hybrid model post-pandemic. But that said, we have to be very, very deliberate about the policies we're creating if we not only hope to gain on some of the gender inequalities that have been exacerbated during the pandemic, but to better support women. While we were in lockdown in Canada, it just never ended. Rightly or wrongly, we took in, my husband and I, 18 children and 3 full-time teachers to take weight off of other women, including my housekeeper and my assistant as well. So the kids could work there because it was just too difficult for them to try to do their jobs, plus be the one to ensure that their kids were able to work virtually. And certainly in the public school system in Canada, and the younger you were, it really didn't work very well. And in fact, of the 18 children, grade 3 and under, we actually just took them out of the system and homeschooled them ourselves. But it's the technology allowed the virtual schooling, the virtual work, but you still need the support infrastructure for women who are working from home, you know, on top of it. And I think the second part of that is really with respect to transparency and communication. And I think technology plays a really important role there. You know, women often have a communication role and more sensitive to communication and transparency, but there are information standards. And in the past, transparency in business was taboo, and the more opaque you were, the better your chance to succeed. But today, lack of transparency and access to information creates the risk of producing the opposite effect and of discouraging family and all employee engagement. So the reality today is, in an increasingly interconnected world, transparency is literally the new gold standard, which is why companies like Trusted Family and their platform, and it's not a sales pitch whatsoever, I firmly believe it, is really actually critically important, even more so for the female side of the families. It makes, you know, it allows the transparency and the open communication makes the governance of family business more objective, more effective as well. So I think there's a real role for it. And then, then I'll stop. And then the last thing, you know, as a woman in technology and growing up in a telecom company, you become aware of emergent technology and the impact it can have on people's lives. So, you know, we've really pushed prior to the pandemic, things like connected schools, cable in the classroom, delivering bandwidth in rural communities to help kids stay connected. You look at your iPhone, for example, and you know, I'm a nervous mom on occasion, and so they have things like on Apple, Find My Friends, so I can always know through technology where my kids are and if they're actually going to school, are they safe and walking home, so I can continue working and not have to be interrupted and actually physically call them up. So I think technology is a friend, and can be a great motivator for us to work more productively and collaboratively.
You know, I'm amazed by what you're saying, Melinda, because of COVID, what's amazing is that everywhere in the world, we all had the same experience of, moving to remote working. And that's, for me, it's fascinating to hear, other people at the other side of the planet having the same experience than I have. So that's amazing. I think, this helped, change, the way our relationship to technology and to work, I think forever. I mean, there was a big shift at that moment. But I would like to add to what you said, is that today, I think, and I take as a basis for what I'm saying, my experience in Lebanon. So I don't know how relevant it is to other markets or cultures. But if you don't have the culture of governance, just having the technology, just to have the technology will not help, because it will not be used. So you need to make sure that we have that we agree on the culture of governance. What kind of information, who should have what kind of information. And this is the challenge, is really to educate our clients, other family businesses about the importance of information sharing, of the culture of transparency and information, so that whenever the culture is there, you can use the platform, the IT platform, to support this culture and to reinforce it and to create a virtuous cycle. Because if you just have the platform and no one uses it, and you bypass it, and you grab your phone and you talk on the side in an informal way to people without going through the board or the platform, it's not going to work.
So you say.
So I was just going to jump in, and the point about the governance too is, if you don't have that governance around even remote work and how you remote work, it still then becomes a problem for women whose children are at home, right? So, a policy that companies could put in place, for example, when students are at home, is between 12 and 1, while the kids have to have lunch, there's going to be a meeting break. You can pause your day to deal with your kids, but then hop back on with your team at 9 at night if need be. But putting some things in and around to allow for people to have their lives. One of the things we found difficult was there was no shut off. We would start at 8 or 9, and with the kids 8, getting them online, start on our sessions at 9, and at 9 at night we'd still be sitting there. And so we really began a push to say, look, there needs to be some principles and policies around how we use this technology, so we're not making all of our employees' lives, whether you're male or female, harder.
And I think, if I think about governance and, platforms, IT platforms for technological platforms for governance, just to contradict what I just said, is maybe if you have a structured, platform, maybe this will push, better information and transparency and equal access to information to all members, not only, female or male, but any relevant member. So I think it has to work in parallel, maybe pushing for the technology, while at the same time pushing for the culture of, respecting, like, what are the boundaries, how do we access information, transparency, how do we work, how do we communicate, what kind of information. I think it's a balancing act between the two, like what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah, I think what I would like to add, I think, for regarding how technology empowers women, I believe that with platforms, with sharing of information, technology enables people to share information. For example, a shareholder agreement, they know where it is. I mean, they can access it, they can read it. So it's not something that is hidden, I don't know, in a safe. So I think that technology really empowers, or might empower also women, because it enables information flow and therefore some kind of education. I think it's helpful. So I would like, what do you think? Would like to have a look at the chat.
Sure.
The Q&A.
Actually, I would like to invite people to ask us questions.
I think there's 2 in the Q&A section.
Oh.
Yes, we just check. Or please write your questions again, because we could not see everything. So we're very...
you want me to read the first question out?
Yes, please.
In order to advance women in family business, would you say that a woman should A, go off and do or start something entrepreneurial outside the family, B, take a role with P&L responsibility within the family business, or C, take a seat on the board? Which of these three ways advances the female family business member more quickly and successfully? Can you rank them, or is it really entirely dependent on the woman in question, the family, or the nature of the business itself? I can start my thought on that. So for me, I actually do really strongly believe, for my kids, if they are interested in the fields that our businesses in, I would strongly encourage them to go work outside of the family business. And frankly, Canada's small, so probably outside of Canada for a period of time. I would strongly encourage them to, get several promotions under their belt before considering returning. Part of it for me and for some of the clients that we work for, we've often heard, even as recently as last week, is they want to be wanted by their family business. Mm-hmm. And I think, that feeds confidence, feeds a lot of things. And so, what I did is I went to work outside. And then I think if you can come back in and take a role with P&L responsibility versus non-P&L, I think that is critically important. And at whatever time you can join the board, or step back from and stay working, or step back from your operating role and decide to take on a more of a governance and oversight role.
Melinda, just a question that popped up. Do you think it's necessary to have worked in the company before joining the board?
No, because if you, in families generally, mm-hmm. It's pretty hard not to understand the family business when you've been living with it mm-hmm. your entire life. But I do think it's important to have business and governance experience mm-hmm. before joining a board.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the board, the seat on the board has to be earned, because you need certain qualification to serve the board. It's not just because you're a family member that you automatically sit on the board. Of course, obviously you have the right as a shareholder, and depending on your shares, to have a seat on the board. But the more you bring your experience, your education, you're educated, and the exposure, the more you add value to the board. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are some other questions,
yes.
I think.
Let's have a look.
Do you want me to read the second one?
Yes,
sometimes we hear that women bosses are harder on their female subordinates than they are on male colleagues. Would you agree? And are fellow female family members harder on the other female family members? That's a great question. Mm-hmm. And I will answer first because I have so strong feeling about this. I don't know if this is true or not. I have no idea. So the person anonymous, I don't know. However, I want to stress one point that I believe in is if you want to advance, the gender equality, sisterhood is so important. So, and it's about being conscious about being in a sisterhood thing and supporting women, supporting other women. I think I love it, now when I go to a conference and I can, link two people together, connect them just for them to succeed, or say how praise a woman in front of someone else to give them the most chances of getting there. I think we need to do this. We need to do this more and more because men are doing it. Mm-hmm. And we need to support really women and be happy for their success. So I don't know if this is true, and I don't have this experience personally, but I want to promote, sisterhood. And if every woman, support at least one other woman and help her succeed, we're doing better. We're more inclusive and diverse as a society.
I would agree. And again, I think you'd have to go and do a global poll on that one, but you also would have to be careful about how you worded it. Within the businesses that I've worked in, I have not seen women be harder on women. In fact, without some of the women leaders at Rogers, I think frankly are literally some of our best leaders. And they lead with all of the business acumen and more that's needed, but also, with a level of understanding how to motivate and get the best from your team that sometimes I see absent. It doesn't mean that any executive, whether male or female, can't have a bad day or can't be tough or an outliner, but by and large, I haven't seen that issue play out.
I think, I remember reading something about, when you have a group of, let's say, 10 people, and it's 10 men, and you have one woman entering the system, the woman will have a tendency to act as a man in terms of energy and behaviors. While when you have, 3 women entering a system, like 30% of, then you have more diversity at that moment, because women will support each other and will start to bring more the different energy that is needed also with the energy of men. And I mean, we need the two different energies and to be able to succeed. But it depends on the proportion of women in the culture, if the culture is inclusive or not. If the culture is very dominant and very tough, women will tend to, have the same behaviors, adopt the same behaviors to succeed, because that's the culture.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Sanja, do you want to read the third question?
Yes, the last question I see. Oh no, there are more. What advice can you give fathers who want to help their daughters who are in their 20s in regards to career development?
I love this question.
Yes, me too. So
Sanja, go ahead.
Other questions. So thinking from your employee's perspective, do you
Oh, drop down. What do you think makes working in a family-run business unique?
Maybe who wants to answer the first one about the father and the daughters?
What are your experiences, daughters? What helped?
I think the father-daughter relationship is amazing. And I think first is to nurture this relationship and to make sure that your daughter, is connected to her dream and is supported in achieving her dream, her education, her passions. I mean, this is what I would love, every father to give to their daughters, I think. And I think it's a very privileged relationship, the father-daughter one.
I think fathers are also in a unique position to encourage and help drive confidence in their daughters. So I think bringing them into discussions at an early age, opening them up to opportunities irrespective of their gender is important, and not dismissing where they think their passion lies. Just because we might want our child to follow in our path. If I'm a doctor, I want my child to be a doctor. It doesn't mean that that's the right thing for them. So you need to make sure that that you're supporting their choices as opposed to what you might want as a parent. And I also think a little bit of speaking to an earlier comment that you made, a little bit of pushing every now and then, not shoving, but encouraging, helping drive and build confidence, and pushing them to go a bit beyond their limits each and every day.
Okay, interesting. Quite typical role understanding of a father, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a look at the watch. I could just go on for hours and talk to you. Now it's 4 o'clock. So are there any last words that you would like to say to encourage women or to end the session?
I was trying to read the other questions. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all the questions. So I wish we had more time. So I just want to acknowledge, thank you for sending those questions, even if you cannot answer them. For me, my last words is, first, I'm very honored to have this platform, to be able to have this discussion with you two. I mean, this is already very important to open those discussions. And we need to have those discussions about, biases, stereotypes, every day, not only today, March 8th, but every day, because it's an ongoing discussion. And we will grow, as a family business, as a community, as a society. The more diverse and inclusive we are, the better we'll be as a society.
So from my side, I just would like to thank you because I think this question all the time, keep on questioning yourself and how you can improve. I think this is very important. So I hand over to Melinda to have the final words to close the session.
So before we opened up the Zoom, I was just mentioning somebody who I've found. Well, there's several females in my life who I found to be quite inspirational, and it was more from the fact, and this is what I want to leave you with, is I think it's really important for everybody, whether you're male or female, but to be a leader and embrace the full inclusion of women in all spheres of societies. And I look at one individual in the last series of years who've really led the way. And if you look at New Zealand, which was the first country in the world where women won the right to vote, and is now a leader for gender parity in politics, and you look at their prime minister and what she's done to try to promote gender parity within her country, it's very inspirational. And I think each and every one of us has an opportunity to do, however small or large, the thing that we do or the impact we make. But I think we all have the ability to make that impact. And I would just encourage you to embrace that each day and think about what can you do to help women, or in all walks of life, become more confident, strive to achieve, and create dreams and possibly reach their dreams.
Wow.
I think there's nothing left to say. I thank you all for joining us. I thank again Trusted Family for having us, and I thank you, Sherine and Melinda, very much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Sanjay.
Pleasure.
See you soon.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.